Hi everyone, this is Dan and the future holds crypto. So yesterday we discussed about the situation in the crypto market and the fact that it doesn't look especially great right now, and it also looks like an increased rate or a chance of being, let's say, not a bear market, because a bear market has been since November, depending on how you think of it. But if you think about the cycles and how it worked in the past, because in the past the halving events were the drivers, and Bitcoin, of course, uh, um, we had this 1.5 years after the halving event until we reached the market top, and then a few years of bear market before the new halving event gets priced in, and we have a run up. But now now it's interesting to see a couple of factors here, because we were looking at the point at some graphics, or some on-chain data related to supply on exchanges. And you know that I started this discussion months ago. I'm not sure it's necessarily relevant, but what I want to see here is, let's look a little bit. We know the market doesn't look great right now, right? Right, the economy doesn't look great. Everything looks bad. We have the interest rates growing and growing, and probably until we reach 2.5 or 3.5, it's a good probably the market won't necessarily be in a very enthusiastic state. And I'm talking about all the markets, especially the stock market and everything. But let's acknowledge the fact that we have a lot of bearish news out there, bearish situations, but why not try to see a possible bullish outcome? Not necessarily bullish, but the most optimistic outcome, right? And it's something interesting that I've been through in the past in bear markets is the sentiment. When you reach a very low sentiment, it seems like everything is going down. There's no solution. You don't see any possible bullish outcomes. Everybody is just dramatically depressed. From the past, a lot of situations when you felt like this, I felt like this, it was a possible bottom. I say a trend reversal, or it was close to it. So I'm not saying this is a trend reversal. I'm not saying this is the bottom, but let's look at some interesting data right here now that present some positive outcomes or possibilities. And first of all, you know that I was talking about the on-chain data especially on the supply of Bitcoin held on exchanges, and it's interesting because we had something maybe for the first time in Bitcoin history when we had a very big price downtrend. We also had in the same time a downtrend in the supply on the exchanges. So basically, while the price was going lower, people were still getting their Bitcoin off exchanges. And why is this important? Because usually when you get your Bitcoin off the exchanges, you're not preparing to sell it. When people get their Bitcoin back on exchanges, they're usually preparing to sell those Bitcoins, right? And you can see here that since March, or let me take a closer look, but since the April 2020, when we had the big crash, when we had the most Bitcoin on exchanges in a recent period of time, we were in a big downtrend. And usually when the Bitcoin goes up, the supply goes down as well, because people were basically buying Bitcoin in an uptrend. But now, when we were in a downtrend since November, you can see here that we were in a big downtrend as well. And if you look closer, actually, we were in historical. We had the supply on exchanges the same as we did in August 2018. So that's 4 years ago, when we had more than 1.5 less Bitcoin, 1.5 million less Bitcoin in existence. So that was something interesting that I was looking at, and I was maybe considering that it shows a strong conviction that Bitcoin should be accumulated slab and in a very slow manner. But you can see here that we have another trend that is interesting to look at, and I'm talking about number of Bitcoin, more than one Bitcoin. And it's still in an uptrend. And we have to be careful here because at one point when we had the big drop here from the previous bull market in 2017, we also were in uptrend, and we printed a new all-time high in wallets bigger than one Bitcoin. So if you look here, basically we're still an uptrend, and we have surpassed the previous one, and by a lot, I would say. So people are still accumulating Bitcoin. Not and I don't think a lot of whales. Let's see on the whale size list. One Bitcoin. This is not the 1,000 Bitcoin. It's a slight downtrend, and I think it's also related to the Luna crash, because they sold in 2 days 80,000 Luna. So yeah, this is what I was showing you at this point. But let's go back here. What concerned me in the previous days is that the trend has started to reverse, and I'm talking about the Bitcoin inflows being bigger than the outflows. That means more Bitcoin coming to exchanges, and this trend started to reverse right here in a very abrupt manner. You can see this bump. This is where it went from 2 million Bitcoin, 2.5 million Bitcoin to, well, it was a difference about 92k Bitcoin in a couple of days. And this is interesting because basically Luna confirmed they sold in 2 days 80,000 Bitcoin. So that's kind of explains this as well. So what I'm getting at here is that, okay, this wouldn't have been great having this trend reversal of inflows, of outflows being smaller than the inflows, because it was already in a price downtrend. If we had this trend reversal in a price downtrend and being more Bitcoin getting into exchanges, that would have meant and means that people lost faith, and they're basically not accumulating Bitcoin more than they're selling. Then that wouldn't have been a good sign, and it's not yet confirmed. It's not, but the fact is that I was looking into something, and the fact that Luna being selling 80k Bitcoin in 2 days, it's exactly this bump over here. So what I was looking now is to see maybe a trend reversal in terms of outflows being bigger than the inflows, and we have seen the first blip here for the first sign. It's this small one here. It's not yet confirmed, of course, but this is the one. So basically now more Bitcoin are taken off the exchanges than Bitcoin being put on exchanges. So that's the first good sign. And I'm not saying it's confirmed, but we'll have to see here, because you can see that we have sometimes you have false, let's say false signs, and then it goes back in that trend, like here went back down a little bit, and then again going on this green side as well. So let's see, but this is the first good sign. So if this is happening, I'm suspecting that this was only created by the Luna mess, because they sold 80k Bitcoin in 2 days. That created a lot of pressure. I mean, I don't think people realize how much can influence the market. Someone selling in 1 or 2 days 80k Bitcoin. It's a huge amount, and it's, of course, it influences the price a lot. If this is only created by the Luna crash, this is interesting, because basically where it's possible that this downtrend here is not necessarily broken, it's just a blip. And now it's interesting to see if the market is big enough to swallow this Luna crash. Was it a big enough blip that it changes the trend and people lose faith into Bitcoin, or the market is bigger than that and it will swallow this blip, continuing the downtrend, showing that people are still accumulating Bitcoin more than they're selling and putting and taking them off the exchanges. So we see the first sign here. So this is not this is a first good news, and I'm saying okay, this is not necessarily. I'm not saying this is the bottom, right? But what I'm saying is that I've rarely seen so much fear in the market, so much capitulation, and it's possible. It might be. The only concern here I have is that I don't see any relief on the macroeconomic scale, which seems to be like we are going into a recession. But I'm not. It doesn't matter because I don't have a lot of experience in this matter, and something that I don't see might happen. And definitely we have also the risk of regulators coming in with the Luna mess and doing some bad stuff with the bad stuff in quoting, because I think the bad stuff to the price, and I think possibly if they're smart enough, good stuff on the for the market itself, because I think that we do need regulations to avoid stuff like that, especially in the stable coins. But depending on what kind of regulations they wanna apply, but we do have the possibility of adoption here, and you know that El Salvador gathered 44 countries talking about Bitcoin and how they adopted Bitcoin in El Salvador and helped them, and it's interesting to see how that evolves. Of course, you will say those countries are not big and everything, and are not necessarily relevant, but I think that this is how adoption looks like. It has to start from somewhere, and I don't think a few countries is something to laugh at. You know, oh, just a small country. Come on, 10 years ago, you wouldn't even thought this was something you would possibly say. So that's one thing. Adoption, it is still possible. I think that you can see that the commodities and the assets prices are kind of going up right now. The risky assets are going a little bit down because of this is how it works when the interest rates are going up. And this is interesting to see how this adoption will influence, because if people start realizing that these are actually assets, we might see something interesting here. And I'm talking about mostly about Bitcoin because it's the safest, but if they see this as an asset, these things and adding the adoption, actually this might help with the trend reversal. I'm not saying it will, but something to look forward to. And another thing that I was looking at, we have this, you know, that with if we look at the S&P 500, give me a second. You can see here that if you drag this from 2000, no, it's 2000. We need to go to a monthly scale. If we have this extension right here, you will see that S&P 500 actually reached the 4.236 extension. This is something that BC Becker talks a lot about. And the the Dow Jones Industrial Average hasn't. And this is interesting that it hasn't. And maybe it has a chance to reach it there. And I was looking at like a pattern here that, and I'm talking about these things because I think they're quite connected with the price, at least recently with the Bitcoin price. If the stock market goes badly, Bitcoin goes badly. And I was looking, and this is just think of it as an exercise, a fun thing to look at. Sometimes I look at patterns. I like to dream, but I saw a pattern that if you take it from, if you put it on what's happening now, it is interesting to see the timing, because you see a big a rally that happens until beginning of next year, and also especially until November, and it does make some sense because we have the U.S. elections in November in U.S., and maybe they do something to help a little bit with the sentiment for the elections, and then and this is exactly until November, and then of course it will run a little bit until the next year, but then we'll have a big crash, and that also might make some sense because they have time afterwards. They wouldn't care because they were already elected, but that's just something that I'm looking at, and it will also help with the price. And if we also look at the DXY here, the DXY had the major run up, and this actually was put by me on the chart a few months ago. This knot hasn't developed yet, but it seems that it followed quite nicely the Elliott waves I was playing around with here. And don't get me wrong, I'm just an amateur looking at some charts here, but it is interesting to see that basically it has a very good run, and it has reached, I mean, it broke a very big trend that started in 2000, a 20-year-old trend. And it's very interesting to see what happens next. But I think that if it has a good chance of a reversal. That's going on the weekly basis. In this area right here, because it's between 618 and 702 786. So basically in this area we might be looking on a trend reversal. And now of course I don't know exactly what's going on and if this is possible and everything, but definitely this is also basically very in line with the Dow Jones in terms of timing, because if this is going down, I suspect the S&P and Dow Jones will go up again, and Bitcoin of course as well. So this is something also to look at here if we have a trend reversal after let's say in this area right here. I may suspect 786 at most will have a reversal, 702 or even between this 618 and 786. So it will be interesting to see what's going on here, but it does have some possible trend reversal here. And if we look at Bitcoin, and also we see something interesting. If we drag from the beginning of the March crash until the November top, we see that this right here is actually the golden pocket area, the Fibonacci golden pocket, and this price drop went exactly in the golden pocket, well, slightly below. It might suggest that it is possible to have a trend reversal in this area, and it's also possible to go beyond 702 or 786. Hopefully not, but it is still definitely possible to go even lower. But this is the golden pocket here, so we do have a chance of that as well. So this is basically what I wanted to show you for today. I mean, let's acknowledge the fact that the market doesn't look great, but still that doesn't mean we have to don't look for some positive scenarios here as well, or the things that have a chance of going with some relief on the market. So that's from the video from today. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.